Yo, what's up, sleepers? It's your boy, Ed Bedhead. For more than 100 generations, the stories of the Battle of Troy have been passed down from the infamous wife-stealing Paris and his protective brother Hector to the legendary warrior Achilles and the ever-clever Odysseus. This is a film about the men and women involved in this historic siege of Troy. Today, I will be reviewing Troy, the movie. And no, this isn't an ad for Trojan condoms, but please wear condoms. I am going to divide this review into two segments. The first part will be a spoiler-free review, and the second part, I'll be breaking down certain scenes and stuff, so it'll have a lot of spoilers. Now, let's get into our Trojan horses and begin. Troy was released May 14th of 2004, starring Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, and Orlando Bloom. Directed by Wolfgang Petersen. That's a pretty cool name. It is rated R. The plot summary. It was the year 1250 BCE. During the late Bronze Age, two emerging nations begin to clash after Paris, the Trojan prince, convinces Helen, queen of Sparta, to leave her husband, Menelaus, and sail him back to Troy. After Menelaus finds out that his wife was taken by the Trojans, he asks his brother Agamemnon to help him out and get her back. Agamemnon sees this as an opportunity for power, so they set off with 1,000 ships holding 50,000 Greeks to Troy. With the help of Achilles, the Greeks are able to fight the never-defeated Trojan. But they come to a stop by Hector, prince of Troy. The whole movie shows the battle struggles and foreshadowing of the fate in this adaptation of Homer's classic, The Iliad. So some of my overall thoughts. I think the casting, especially for Achilles and Hector, was done excellent. They're both very handsome men after all. And when you go into this movie, don't expect it to follow the Iliad word for word. It's kind of its own thing, and it takes inspiration from the Iliad, but it's not exactly the same. There are some really intense but great action scenes in this movie. You got this Bronze Age combat going on, with swords, spears, shields, and arrows. It's really hectic and really awesome. The set design, costumes, and scenery was all amazing. It feels like you were actually in the ancient city of Troy. And I don't know how they did that when they didn't really use CGI, I don't think. And I kind of like how ambiguous the villain is in this movie, because you're not really sure what side you're supposed to pick, but it's supposed to be that way. Now, it does have a few flaws that I can't really get into without talking about spoilers, so for now I'm going to rate this movie a 7 out of 10. Now let's compare this to the online ratings people have on the movie Troy. First, let's take a look at the critics' score. So Metascore gave it a 56 out of 100, and I gotta say, that's kind of rough. And Tomato Meter critics gave it a 54%. And again, I don't necessarily agree with those numbers. The audience of IMDb gave it a 7.2 out of 10 though. And that's finally a score I can agree with. The Rotten Tomato audience gave it a 73%. So there's a bit of a conflict between the critics and the audience for this movie. So that's why I like to give both sides of the story. Now, before we jump into the spoiler-filled review, I'd like to ask you to like this video if you're enjoying it so far. Comment down below on what your favorite scene from Troy the movie was, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It'll really help me out, and it means the world to me. Now let's get into the spoiler-filled discussion. Let's take an in-depth look in the movie Troy. So I'd like to discuss certain scenes, such as the thousands of ships sailing into Troy. I think it was a really cool shot of all the boats, and I wonder how they did it, because I don't think they used CGI at the time. You just see all these wooden boats on the ocean, and it looks really good. Another scene I'd like to discuss is the battle between Paris and Menelaus. It's a really cool battle, and you see thousands of soldiers lined up outside the wall ready for battle. The costumes were 10 out of 10. You even got to see Paris freaking out. He was just a young boy after all, and this is his first war. He kind of romanticized it in his head, but when he was on the battlefield, he got to see how gruesome it really was. You could also see his brother, Hector, struggling to decide if he should help Paris or not. Was he willing to risk his nation and his honor for Paris? How far was he really willing to go for the love of his brother? Also, I'd like to discuss the scene where the Trojan horse actually works. It's a very brutal scene, and it's not for the faint of heart. They show the vile side of war in this scene. Assassinations of sleeping soldiers, murders of children and babies, severe civilian casualties, and even some R-word to women. So it's definitely not an easy scene to get. Now, I'd like to discuss Achilles' death. And this scene used to make me tear up as a kid. And the part I like best about it is you're not actually sure what arrow kills him. So in the Iliad, it goes that when he gets shot in the Achilles heel, that's when he dies. But in the movie, he takes like 4 or 5 arrows that hit him in like the chest, the stomach. One does hit him in the heel, and that's when he falls. But we're not actually sure if that's the arrow that actually killed him. And I like that about it. It makes his demigodness a little bit more of a mystery. We also got to see his brother Paris finally stand up for his country. But a little bit too late there, bud. So here's some of my thoughts I was having while watching the movie. Why does Achilles' hair always look like it's wet? I mean, come on, seriously, it's a little distracting. Other than that, it's a great movie, and it's makes me very nostalgic when I watched it as a kid. I think it still holds up today, and it could be due to the lack of CGI, but it's also due to the strong acting and casting choices in this movie. I also kind of felt sorry for King Priam, but like he also let his country go to war for his son's lover, so kind of hard to sympathize. That's what makes this movie so good though. You don't really know what side to pick. It's definitely a movie I will never forget. Now, this is my favorite moment in the whole film. The battle between Achilles and Hector. 2 amazingly casted characters. You could feel the tension the whole fight, and I'm not even sure who to root for. That's what makes it even better. I want both of them to win, and it's just so frustrating, but like also so awesome. The fight choreography was amazing. I think Hector trying to keep up with Achilles was so cool. The way that Achilles moved was incredible. He was like a monster, and I think they captured that so well. Now, these are moments that should be cut or things that should be changed in the movie. Achilles should not have been Achilles' cousin in this movie. Now, I've already read and reviewed Madeline Miller's book on this channel. If you haven't seen that, make sure to go check it out. So in that book, and just in history in general, they're not actually cousins. They're more like best friends. Some even speculate lovers. And I think they were afraid to do that in 2004. So I think that was a really bad move on the studio's part, and they should have just went with it. It would have made Achilles' fury, Achilles' wrath of Patroclus' death that much more meaningful. I also would have liked to see more of Odysseus. He was also one of my favorite characters in the movie. I think he was casted well, and I think he should have gotten his own sequel, The Odyssey. So my final rating is a 7 out of 10. So let's go ahead and read some reviews online. This one is from an IMDb audience member. They gave it a 9 out of 10. Let's see what they have to say. I'm sick of all the bad reviews for this movie. I really don't give a damn if it's true to the Iliad or not. This movie is extremely entertaining. I really like the fact that the gods are downplayed in this movie. It makes the story a lot more realistic. The acting was good. The story was good. The dialogue was good. The action scenes were good. I really can't see what's not to like in this movie. I guess I could pick it apart and find flaws, but I could do that with every movie ever made. For those upset by the fact that there was no definite good side or bad side, I have some shattering news. In war, there is never a good side or bad side. War is all subjective, depending on whose side you are on. Every side thinks that they are the good guys. A lot of people were upset about Paris, who is cast as a coward, becoming heroic in the end. Like it or not, we all have cowardliness and heroism within us. We just don't like to admit it. So ignore the critics and watch this movie. Remember, critics have opinions just like everyone else. And the old saying goes, opinions are like a-holes. Everyone has one, and a lot of them stink. You don't have to agree with me, but don't let someone else make up your mind for you either. I just gotta say, that is an amazing summary. I pretty much agree with most of it, and I think this reviewer is really good at reviewing. Maybe he should make his own channel. So this Metacritic user gave it an 80 out of 100. Troy is fun, energizing, piece of summer entertainment. Even if it doesn't have the depth or sustained intensity of Gladiator. I think that's kind of a fair comparison, but at the same time, those are different timelines, so I'll let it slide. This Rotten Tomato audience member gave it half a star. From a historical and mythological standpoint, super inaccurate. Even the zoology was off. Horribly adapted film. One of my least favorite movies ever. To that person, I just have to say, who hurt you, buddy? It really was not that bad. This Rotten Tomatoes critic gave it a rotten score. With all the over-the-top costumes and set, it looks more like a television movie of the week than a big summer event flick. I just gotta say, really? I honestly thought it was great. And it could not have been cheap making all those costumes and sets. I thought they looked amazing. In conclusion, I personally believe this movie still holds up. Whether for nostalgia or it's your first time, I really suggest watching it. Maybe it'll spark or reignite your interest in Greek mythology and ancient Greek culture. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure to like this video if you've enjoyed it so far, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and comment down below on what your favorite scene from the movie was. As always, stay woke, sleepers. Peace!